Hey everybody, and welcome back to another max velocity weather forecast. And in today's forecast, we'll be breaking down a massive severe weather event across the central and southern plains this weekend. We'll also be discussing our next big winter storm as we head into early next week. I'll give you the latest breakdown on both of these situations and more in this forecast. Let's first begin with what's happening across the United States today, beginning with the West Coast, which is actually where we have a very strong low pressure system that has actually brought snow to areas near Los Angeles. There's been blizzard-like conditions over the last 48 hours. It has totaled upwards of 50 to 100 inches of snow when this is all said and done. It is a very impressive low pressure system, and this is what we need to watch out for in the Great Plains and as well as back through the Midwest, as it will create a very potent severe weather event along with the threat for a massive winter storm as we go into next week. Now, if you're anywhere else in the United States, it's been basically just overcast for much of the United States today. That is all due to a bunch of moisture kicking out of the Pacific Ocean and even out of the Gulf of Mexico, bringing a ton of cloud cover across the southern tier of the United States. Meanwhile, New England and the Northeast is starting to clear out from that winter storm that happened over the past few days. Now, as we head into this upcoming weekend, going into Sunday primarily, is when we're going to watch that low pressure system cross over the Rocky Mountains. And this is what's going to create the big severe weather event, which I'll have more details for you here in just a moment. This will eventually go into the Midwest as we go into Monday, creating another threat for a winter storm that could bring heavy snow, along with the threat again of ice accumulation. So we have to watch this system very closely. Eventually going into late Monday into Tuesday, it turns into a dual threat with two low pressure systems, which I'll break down in detail for you here in just a moment. It's going to be a pretty impressive setup, and then this will bring more snow and even a potential for maybe a little bit of ice to areas in the Northeast. Now, there is a threat for severe weather as we head into Sunday. There is currently an enhanced risk of severe weather. That is going to be primarily for those in north central Texas, along with areas in central Oklahoma. Main concerns right now will be damaging wind gusts upwards of 80 miles per hour. That's not impossible with this sort of setup, along with the threat for some very large hail. There may be a storm or two that does produce a tornado threat. It's not nearly as high as people think it will be, but there will be a threat for maybe a couple of tornadoes out of this line of storms that we'll be watching develop. Also, before I show you the severe weather timing for Sunday, make sure to subscribe down below. That way you get notified when I have my latest weather forecasts along with severe weather live streams. I might go live on Sunday for this event, so make sure to subscribe down below and click the bell icon so you get notified when I go live. Now let's talk about the timing. Going into Sunday afternoon is when we'll watch for the development of a cluster of showers and storms back over in the Texas Panhandle, back through even areas in southwestern Kansas. This is where the initial thunderstorm development will be. These storms initially will have the greatest threat for damaging winds upwards of 70 to 80 miles per hour, along with the threat for some large to maybe even very large hail with a cell or two. Eventually going closer to the evening hours, going maybe closer to about 5, 6, 7 o'clock, storms will be rolling through western Oklahoma, and this line will really become pretty potent and go through areas in North Texas all the way back through Kansas. Now, a bit of a closer look here for those in Oklahoma as well as North Texas. Again, storms will develop around 4 to 5 o'clock over in the Panhandle as we go into Sunday afternoon. This line will move into western Oklahoma between about 6 to 9 o'clock, and then eventually going closer to about 10 o'clock or so. That is when that line of storms will be crossing through Interstate 35 near Oklahoma City, as well as near Stillwater, and even through areas in DFW. You'll likely see some storm activity closer to about 10 to 11 o'clock, and eventually going closer to 11 to 12 o'clock, those storms will begin to move into areas like Tulsa, which again, damaging winds is my main concern. Some large hail along with maybe a couple of tornadoes is not out of the question. Something quite interesting is the wind gust map. We can actually look at this going into Sunday and notice the wind gusts across the southern plains will be upwards of 25 to 50 miles per hour. It'll be a large range, but look when that line of storms develops going into Monday evening. The line of storms will be right about where my cursor is, and then you can see the wind gusts out in front of that line of storms, upwards of 60 miles per hour. So this is a very strong system. Regardless of that line of storms, we'll still be seeing some damaging winds out in front of this, so be mindful of that. We'll likely see some wind advisories issued by the time this event comes. I know that we're in March, but winter is not over yet, and in fact, we're going to be seeing a winter storm early next week. I'll show you that in just a moment, but I do want to show you the temperature anomalies. This gives us an idea of who's seeing below average temperatures, which is the blue area, along with who's going to see above average temperatures, which is in that red area. So going into this weekend, most of the country is above average. The only exception is back down here into the western tier of the United States, along with a few states there up in New England, but eventually going into mid next week, still a large chunk of the country is above average, but even then, we are still going to be seeing a winter storm back over into the northeast and as well as into the Midwest. Eventually going by Thursday and Friday of this upcoming week, still right around average for most of the United States, so no big Arctic blasts are in the upcoming 7 days. We might have to watch for maybe one as we go into the following week, but for right now, no concerns there. But one thing I do want to mention before that winter storm as well is the threat for some snow tonight. There actually will be a potential for a little bit of some light snow across the Midwest this evening. There's even a threat for maybe some freezing drizzle, which could equivalent to a little bit of ice accumulation across some areas in Illinois and as well as Missouri. It will not be that big of an event, but just something to kind of keep in the back of your head if you're in the Midwest. Maybe an additional coating to a couple of inches across the region. Highest snowfall totals would be back up in the upper Michigan Peninsula, where maybe 1 to 3 inches could occur. Now let's talk about that winter storm. It is going to be a fairly large winter storm, not nearly as large as what we just saw this past week, but it will still bring some pretty substantial impact. So going through Monday morning, that is when that low pressure system will be pretty intense, and it will actually be as low as 977 millibars. So pretty intense low pressure system. This will be bringing a bunch of rain to areas in the Midwest. Areas like Chicago will probably be seeing some moderate to heavy rainfall as we go into the Monday morning commute. But look at this. Some freezing rain may return. This could lead to the threat for some ice accumulation across the Midwest, including Michigan and even back through Wisconsin. Maybe even eastern Minnesota could get involved in that. Once we go into Monday, late morning and into the afternoon hours, that is when a very deep transition into snow will occur due to the temperatures falling a little bit further off to the north of this low pressure system. And going through Monday evening, snow will still continue, but this will all be out of here by Tuesday. So it's going to be a pretty quick event. It will only last maybe 12 hours at most across the Midwest. In terms of snowfall accumulation, there is still a lot of time in between now and then, so things will change as we get closer, but this is an early estimate from the European model indicating that some areas could get upwards of maybe 5 to 10 inches of snow, with a couple of pockets maybe closer to a foot of snow. The other big concern with this winter storm will be the ice accumulation, and this is something that we've really got to watch for very closely. The problem is we don't exactly know where this is going to happen. The computer models have been all over the place with this. This is the European model indicating through central sections of Wisconsin and even back into southern Michigan. But look at the NAM model. It is much further off to the north, and then the GFS model is kind of in between the two. So there's still a lot of uncertainty on where this ice storm will really take place. Luckily, it will not bring nearly as much ice as what we saw with this previous winter storm, but this will still cause some travel impacts. So stay tuned. We'll keep you posted with the latest details on that. Now, back through the northeast, this winter storm will also play a part into the weather over this direction, and we'll actually be watching for a couple of interesting features with this winter storm once it gets closer to New England. So let's head into late Monday night into Tuesday morning. This is where we'll be watching for a little low pressure system to actually develop off the coast of New Jersey, along with the main low pressure system back over in Michigan. And this one will bring snow back over into the Midwest. This one could bring some snow over into New England. So a couple of different little areas here that we're watching for some snow. It's a very interesting setup that we have over here. Once we go into Tuesday morning, that other low pressure system moves out, and the only snow that would come from any of this would be from this other low pressure system, the main one that we've been watching, and this one could bring some additional snow accumulation across the northeast before that all moves out by Wednesday morning. Now, your biggest question is going to be, how much snow are we going to see? Well, there's a lot of uncertainty between now and then. That coastal low that will likely develop near New Jersey, there's some uncertainty regarding that as well, but for right now, there's at least a good picture here that we'll see somewhere between 3 to 6 inches for a large chunk of New England. But again, things could change as we get closer, so stay tuned. We'll have a more detailed forecast as we get a little bit closer. We will have more specific details for you in our next forecast. Make sure to subscribe down below. This forecast is brought to you by Platinum Contracting.